The air over Wykeford Cross hung thick with roasting eel, wood smoke, and the sour tang of unwashed bodies pressed too close. Dust swirled in the gold-laced light slanting between crooked timber stalls, catching in Felina's hair, a wild rust-red crown she never tamed, though the village women muttered it invited the devil's attention. She didn't care. Rust, they called her. Not out of spite, but truth, she gleamed bright, but left marks. Felina, 20 summers old, wore a sleeveless kirtle of faded saffron wool, patched at the elbows, its hem hitched up to reveal sturdy leather boots stolen years ago from a drowned tinker. Around her waist, a tooled belt held pouches, a whetstone, and a slender iron stylus she used more for mischief than accounting. Her eyes, green as river moss and just as slippery, scanned the square. There, old Meg's stall. The widow Meg had shuffled off to the well, leaving her wares unguarded, a dozen honey-glazed pottery crocks, bundles of lavender and rosemary, and the prize, 6 small soap cakes, each pressed with a crossed shears mark, the sign of the Guild of Washwives. Meg's late husband had been their master. These soaps were his final batch, mild, long-lasting, and blessed by the parish priest on Candlemas. Worth thrice their weight in barley. Felina moved like smoke. No rush. Just a girl adjusting her shawl, humming a bawdy tavern tune. She brushed past a woolmonger, dropped a copper in a beggar's cup, for luck, and slipped behind Meg's stall. From her inner pouch, she withdrew 6 counterfeit soaps, rough cast lard and ash lumps she'd pressed herself in the dead of night, stamped with a crude, stolen dye. Her version, gritty, greasy, and smelling of rancid tallow. But in the dim stall shadow, nearly identical. Hands swift as a pickpocket's, she swapped them, one for one. Then, with the iron stylus, she scratched Meg's St. Cured soap, for sin and stain onto a spare parchment scrap and pinned it high. A lie wrapped in piety. Good wife, she called out, voice bright as a new penny, to a well-dressed burgher's wife inspecting linens nearby. You've luck today. These soaps, blessed thrice by Father Alcuin himself, used by the prioress at St. Hilda's for cleansing moral filth. She held one aloft. Sunlight caught the false stamp. Only 3 pennies. For purity's sake. The woman hesitated, then nodded. For my daughter's wedding trousseau. Sin sticks to linen, they say. Felina smiled, a flash of white in a sun-browned face. Aye, madam. Especially invisible sin. Coin clinked into her palm. Then another buyer. And another. A merchant's clerk bought 2, for the master's hands, after counting coin. A nun, veiled and silent, took 1, perhaps for doubt, perhaps for dust. Felina's pouch grew heavy. Her pulse sang, not with guilt, but with power. She wasn't stealing coin. She was selling hope. And hope, in Wykeford, was the rarest currency of all. She didn't see Meg return, not at first. The old woman stood at the edge of the stall, basket empty, hands trembling, eyes fixed on the soap in the burgher's wife's hand, the wrong soap. Her face, parchment thin, went the color of curdled milk. Felina met her gaze. And in that moment, as the crowd's murmur shifted, as a child pointed and whispered, "Rust did it," the first note of the Flagrum's crack echoed in her bones. But the coins were warm in her fist. And Rust never dropped what she'd earned. Not yet. The silence struck first. Not true silence, the market still buzzed, pigs squealed in pens, a tinker hammered a buckle, a ballad monger wheezed a tune on his pipe, but around Meg's stall, a hush pooled, thick and cold as well water. People turned. Not all at once. Just leaned. Heads tilted. Shoulders shifted. A butcher paused mid-slice, cleaver hovering over mutton. A child's dropped apple rolled, unclaimed, toward Felina's boot. Meg did not shout. She stepped forward, slow, bent, but unbowed, and reached past Felina into the stall. Her knotted fingers closed around the last remaining soap cake, the real one, hidden beneath a cloth for safekeeping. She held it up. "Look," she said. Her voice was dry reed, but it carried. "Look at the mark." She pressed her thumb into the soap's side, soft from the heat. The true guild stamp emerged, crisp, 2 shears crossed over a dove. A symbol of peace, purity, and the oath-bound craft. Then, with the same thumb, she scraped at the soap Felina had sold to the burgher's wife. A thin film of grease smeared her skin. The surface crumbled. A gasp rippled outward. "Tallow," Meg whispered, and now the whole square heard. "Pig scrap. Unblessed. Unshriven." She turned her palm toward Felina. This one tried to sell sin as salvation. Felina's smile froze, then cracked. She backed half a step. "A mistake, good wife." The light, rust. A boy's voice, sharp as a slate shard. Tom, the chandler's son, stood on a barrel, grinning. "I saw her last night, behind the midden heap, pressing them with Daffy Cobb's old die." Daffy had been hanged for coining 3 years past. His tools were forfeit to the crown, and rumored lost. Felina's blood turned to ice. Meg raised her hand, not in anger, but summons. From the apothecary's shadow, Brother Anselm emerged, thin, grey, eyes like flint. He carried a small, leather-bound ledger, the guild register. Wordlessly, he flipped to the washwife's page and pointed. There, beside Meg's husband's name, was the true stamp. Then he held up the soap Felina had sold. Mismatched. Blurred. Blasphemous. A woman crossed herself. Another spat on the cobbles, not at the soap, but near Felina's feet, a ward against deception. Then, the worst sound. A low, rising hum. Not a chant. Not yet. Just the sound of 100 voices whispering the same word, rust. 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 The crowd closed in, not violently, but inevitably, like tide over sand. Stalls were abandoned. A fishwife dropped her basket, eels writhed in the dust, ignored. Men formed a loose ring. Women drew children close, not to shield them, but to show them. Felina tried to slip between 2 carters. One shifted his bulk. Not aggressively. Just anchored. She turned. A blacksmith's apprentice folded his arms thick as ham hocks, face unreadable. No escape. Then, the Flagrum's shadow. Not the whip itself, not yet. But him. Master Corwin, bailiff of Wykeford, stepped from the porch of the Guildhall. Broad-shouldered, iron-grey beard trimmed square, he wore the red sash of office, and at his hip, not a sword, but the Flagrum minor, a short, braided leather scourge, knotted with brass tags, each engraved with a sin, falsitas. Frows. Superbia. He did not speak. He simply held out his hand. Not for the soap. For her. Felina's breath hitched. Her fingers twitched toward her pouch, the warm weight of stolen coin. She could throw them. Scatter them like chaff. Create chaos. Run. But the crowd's eyes held her. Not hatred. Worse, disappointment. As if she'd broken something fragile, they'd all secretly hoped to keep whole. She looked at Meg, who did not gloat. Who only watched, weary, as one watches a bird beat itself against glass. The pouch slipped from Felina's belt. It hit the cobblestones with a hollow clink. Coins spilled, 6 silver pennies, gleaming like accusations in the sun. No one moved to pick them up. The hum deepened. And Rust, for the first time, felt truly bare. The Flagrum did not bite flesh, not yet. Master Corwin did not raise the scourge. Instead, he knelt, slowly, deliberately, and gathered the 6 silver pennies, one by one, pressing them into Meg's palm. Then he turned to the crowd. By the custom of the manor, he announced, voice carrying like a struck bell, and by the assent of this gathering. Let the reckoning be threefold: restitution, labor, and witness. No trial. No priest's absolution first. In Wykeford, shame was the sacrament. Felina was made to stand on Meg's stall, the very planks she'd defiled, and return every penny, hand to hand. Not tossed. Not dropped. Given. She had to meet each buyer's eyes, the burgher's wife, who refused to touch her fingers, the clerk, who sighed, as if filing a minor error, the nun, who placed the coin in Felina's palm and whispered, penitence begins in the hands. With each return, Felina's shoulders lowered. Not in humility, yet, but in the slow collapse of performance. For 7 days, from prime to nones, Felina would clean Meg's stall, scrubbing boards with lye and river sand, restocking true goods, mending sacks, folding linens exactly as Meg directed. She wore no saffron kirtle. No rust-bright hair loose. Instead, a plain, undyed penitent's smock, coarse wool, knee-length, sleeves to the wrist, no belt. A hood shadowed her face. The color of dust. The color of erasure. And then, the Flagrum. Not lashes. Not blood. Master Corwin stepped forward, uncoiling the Flagrum minor. But instead of striking her back, he pressed the handle into Felina's own hand. Then he took her wrist, firm, not cruel, and guided her arm. Thwack. Not on skin. On the counterfeit soap she'd made. It shattered, greasy fragments flying. Thwack. Another. Thwack. Until all 6 lay in broken, reeking pieces at her feet. The sin is in the making, Corwin said, voice low now, for her alone. Not just the selling. You chose to shape the lie. So you unmake it. With your own hand. Before God and men. The crowd did not cheer. Did not jeer. They watched. And in that watching, silent, unblinking, was the true Flagrum. Autumn had crept in. The air smelled of wood smoke and rotting apples. Felina walked the path home, head bent, the penitent's smock long returned, but she still wore subdued colors, gray, brown, moss green. Her hair, once wild, was braided tight, wrapped in a plain linen wimple. Children did not point now. But they did not play near her, either. At the market, stall holders gave her space. Not hostility, just distance, like one gives a scalded dog. She no longer walked through the square. She skirted it. Yet, on her windowsill at the cottage she shared with her ailing aunt, sat one object. A single soap cake. Real Meg's soap. The last one. Unbroken. Unblessed, for Felina dared not ask Father Alcuin to sanctify it. Not yet. She held it sometimes, at dusk. It did not lather easily in cold water. But when it did, when she worked it between her palms, slow, deliberate, the scent rose, lavender, beeswax, and faintly, rosemary, for remembrance. She had not spoken her confession in church. Not aloud. But in the quiet, she whispered one word, over and over, as she scrubbed Meg's stall, as she handed back coin, as she shattered her own lies again. Not sorry. Not forgive me. Again. Try again. Do again, truly, this time. Rust never washes off. But iron, when tempered, becomes steel.